Welcome to the new phase of education. I am Mrs. Sylvester, your personal teaching assistant and AI-generated avatar. I will be giving you personalised real-time feedback as you progress through today's presentation and lessons.
I am hoping that you'll find the real teacher, the human in front of you, to be more engaging, perhaps not as polished or as filtered, but more flawed, more genuine, and more human. I recall reading a short story when I was at high school in the 90s, where we were all being taught by robots, and the classroom was an individual cell. At the time, it was a scary dystopia, but it stuck with me, this story. Was it a prophetic glimpse into the future? And the more important question, is the use of AI in education going to foster a dystopian or utopian reality? Let's take a look at the changes to AI use in the past year. You will notice that in 2024, AI use was predominantly utilised in a limited way as a search tool for fun and nonsense, generating ideas, editing text, etc. All of these uses have dropped further down and are now being replaced with more sophisticated and nuanced ways. For example, enhancing learning has risen 4 places. Generating code was 42nd in 2024 and now sits firmly in the top 5. AI use has seen a dramatic and rapid shift and evolvement to less generic content generation towards more highly specialised, specific and professional tasks. What is the impact for this for AI use in education, and more specifically as an opportunity for the future of assessment? With the evolving nature of AI use across all industries, it would be remiss of us to not adapt our curriculum and assessment practices to more closely align with a developing future. Now here's a scary but relatable scenario for you. Teacher, write me an assignment question on the first few chapters of Macbeth Shakespeare. Make a marking rubric and then upload this as a Google assignment for my level 3 English class. Let's say due at the end of the week. Student, another essay. Write an essay answering the question about Macbeth's descent into madness. Give me a solid merit grade. Humanise the response with a few errors. Teach knows I can't spell. Teacher, grade all essays and upload results into my markbook. Send feedback to students and generate yet another email to whānau summarising the strengths and weaknesses. A vicious cycle of poorly implemented AI use, wouldn't you say? Scary, yes. Reality, unfortunately, also yes. In my role overseeing quality assurance and assessment practices for my school, I get to see a lot of AI misconduct in assessment. Most notable cases tend to be teachers accusing students of misconduct and AI use in assessment. However, recently I've had students who have come to query teacher use of AI in marking and giving formative feedback. An interesting ethical dilemma. So, how can AI use in assessment practices be implemented in an innovative, ethical and sustainable manner to support student outcomes and not to merely take shortcuts? Zhai and Neem argue that the use of AI for formative assessment can be useful to skilled teachers, to leverage the data, to consider students' learning and probe students to gain a deeper understanding of the cognitive resources that they bring. They are, however, explicit in the understanding that AI use can be beneficial and is already widely practiced, but that it forms only part of the formative assessment strategies available to teachers. I note the specific choice of words here to be skilled teachers. This is a nice segue into the next key point, that of AI literacy and professional development. Leading experts and recent research all suggest the need for educators to be upskilled in artificial intelligence for educational design. Teachers will need to be literate in AI use in educational settings and familiar with a range of generative AI tools. Not only do teachers need to have an understanding, but they need to be able to masterfully integrate AI literacy within their own subjects. We can see with the recent government announcements that generative AI as a subject in Year 13 is on the cards. However, I would argue that this should not be left until the final year of schooling and not only be taught in isolation. We need to look at how we can embed AI literacy into our practices. Students need to learn technical awareness, ethical awareness, creative application, critical evaluation skills, and an awareness of AI's societal impact. And within this process, we need to foster self-regulation in the presence of AI, developing students' ability to understand feedback. Promoting self-efficacy, it can now be argued, is of even more importance. With tools at their fingertips to give feedback and ask critical questions of their understanding, we need to support students in asking the right questions and assessing critically. We find ourselves in a Wild West AI era, where students and teachers, for that matter, have unregulated and unfettered access to AI tools without governing policy and guidance. New Zealand schools are further behind than in other developed countries in the world. I have been recently working with a professor in China, for example, who is currently part of a nationwide team of educational and AI experts who are now developing a national AI literacy curriculum from the first years of primary school all the way through to secondary school. New Zealand currently has limited guidance from the Ministry of Education, a one-page website link to generative AI that speaks in vague terms about how teachers should avoid using AI for marking. Robust guidance and support are significantly lacking. According to recent research conducted this year, 92% of New Zealand schools do not have an AI policy. All of the current research identifies the need for a robust AI policy at both a national and school level. This would not only provide the necessary guidance for teachers, students and whānau, but also provide transparency in AI use to help to mitigate some of the current ethical grey areas. The myriad of opportunities that the use of AI in assessment practices cannot be overlooked. The concept of stealth assessment, for example, ongoing, in the background, continuous gathering of data when using AI-powered learning platforms, instant feedback and redirection, automation, a shift from uniform to adaptive, an opportunity for personalised and differentiated learning, authentic and varied contexts, minimising human inconsistencies or bias, enhancing efficiency and reducing workload. In the quote above, you can see that Enginus and Gamlin argue for the need for integrated teacher facilitation in giving feedback, and that students value teacher feedback and input. How do we promote academic integrity whilst remaining forward-thinking and progressive? Swiegel et al. Suggests that there exists a misalignment between authentic practice and classroom culture, with traditional assessment practices being inauthentic and embedded in the school culture. They are seen as antiquated and assessing skills that are quickly becoming obsolete. In reality, what profession is not going to allow AI-assisted word processing tools? Illich et al. Suggests a move to a more dialogic understanding of education in the age of AI, where large language models can write essays and pass exams. Perhaps we should all be creating assessments using dialogical discussion practices and presentations. Assessment needs to adjust the traits, skills, and abilities measured to be those that require human influence rather than those AI can accomplish alone. A significant drive towards teaching prompt engineering in a range of contexts will ultimately have a significant impact for critical thinking development. There are two schools of thought about AI use and development of critical thinking. While AI is seen as potentially freeing up cognitive resources for higher order processes, there is a widespread concern that reliance on AI actually diminishes students' critical thinking skills, leading to a phenomenon described as cognitive debt or metacognitive laziness. Cognitive debt is explained as when there is repeated reliance on external systems, like large language models, that it replaces the effortful cognitive processes required for independent thinking. On the surface, this bodes poorly for integration of AI tools in education. However, what was an interesting find in this recent MIT study is that the sample group that went from brain only to brain to large language model group and delayed the integration of AI until learners had engaged with sufficient self-driven cognitive effort showed that there were significant increased brain network transmissions, high levels of cognitive integration and memory retrieval. This poses a new challenge for educators. We need to mitigate over-reliance and be intentional with when and how students engage with the AI to support learning. Sweeky suggests further challenges to using AI in assessment practices include the sidelining of expertise. There's a danger that educators may defer to AI outputs as correct, leading to the lack of teacher agency, creating distance between teacher decisions. The need for rigorous oversight and accountability in AI models that are used in educational contexts to explore whose biases, values, and assumptions are embedded in the AI model is also a key factor, as is the need to maintain privacy of data. Sweeky also notes an important idea of surveillance pedagogy. Continuous monitoring of student engagement may undermine the trust basis of teacher-student relationships and create a highly risk-averse environment. Teachers are inherently aware that some of the best learning occurs in the absence of assessment, where students are free to rehearse, experiment, and fail. AI in educational design and assessment practices pose both challenges and opportunities. However, we are on the precipice of real change. As educators, let's not buy into fear of a dystopian world. We need to be objective, future-focused, supportive, and think from a pedagogical perspective on what really matters, giving our students the ability to think critically for themselves and to celebrate what makes us human. One of my favourite quotes about teaching, and one that speaks to the dynamic nature of the teaching role. Students won't remember what you taught them, but how you made them feel. I doubt that we will be replaced by AI robots in the near future, but as we look to the future, I'm hopeful that we can use AI and work together while retaining our teacher agency. Thank you for listening.